right, so here we are with solving 1 and 2 step inequalities. An equation uses an equal sign to show that both sides are equal, and an inequality shows that both sides are not equal. Write the symbol and sketch the number line for each of the following. Greater than, okay, so the greater than symbol would look like this. Okay, greater than always has an open circle and is going to shade to the right. Okay, greater than or equal to symbol looks like this. The only difference is now we're going to color in that circle and shade to the right. Okay, this is considered an open set because the end point is not included. Okay, this would be considered a closed set because the end point is included. It's part of the answers. What about less thans? Okay, less than would be this symbol, open circle to the left. Okay, again, open circle, open set. Less than or equal to, closed circle, okay, still to the left. Closed set, endpoint is part of the answer. How do we solve inequalities? We use the same steps we did when we solved equations. There is one super special part about solving inequalities, and that is going to be that when we multiply or divide by a negative, we have to remember to flip the inequality symbol. All right, so let's take a look at a couple of examples, and I'm going to have you do a couple of examples along the way. So first things first, if we solve this inequality, right, we're going to do the opposite of what we see. So we're going to add 5 to both sides. Okay, so when I do that, I'm going to have x is greater than 37. Okay, I don't have to do any more steps, but what I do need to do is sketch my answer on the number line. Okay, so the number line's down here. I want to make sure that 37 is somewhere in the middle of my number line. Okay, then I can count by whatever I want. I'll count by ones here. Okay, I'm going to put an open circle at 37, all right, because it's an open set, a greater than symbol. And then I'm going to shade to the right of 37, okay, because greater thans go to the right. That means every number to the right of 37 works, but 37 does not work. Okay. Second, all right, I have negative 13x is less than or equal to 117. So I'm going to divide by negative 13, and this is one of those special circumstances. Okay, if I divide by a negative, I have to remember to flip my symbol when I rewrite this inequality. Okay, so when I take, write the next step here, I'm not going to have a less than or equal to anymore. I'm going to have a greater than or equal to. 117 divided by negative 13 ends up giving me negative 9. Okay, so again, I'm going to use my number line. I'm going to put negative 9 somewhere in the middle of it. Okay, so that would be negative 8, negative 7, negative 6, negative 5. It's going towards 0. Negative 11, negative 13, going the other direction. I'm going to put a closed circle this time at negative 9. And it is, again, a greater than, which means I'm going to draw my line to the right. Okay, greater than's go to the right. Now, negative 9 is part of the answers this time, though, because I have the equal to symbol in my inequality. And my last problem here is a two-stepper. Okay, so like before, you know, please don't call me or don't call me after midnight. No distributed property. There's no combining like terms. I don't need to move my variables. So I'm all the way down at that addition and subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. Okay, and I get 5 halves r is less than 45. Okay, and then I'm going to divide by 5 halves, or I could multiply by the reciprocal, which will be 2/5, doesn't matter. Okay, so when I do that, I end up with r is less than, okay, and that ends up giving me what, 18? Okay, so r is less than 18. I didn't have to worry about flipping my symbol because there was no negatives involved. Okay, I'm going to come down here to my number line. I'm going to put 18 somewhere in the middle. Okay, I'm going to number my number line otherwise. Doesn't matter how many parts you label. I'm going to use an open circle at 18 because it's an open set. Okay, there's no equal to sign, and less than goes to the left. So that means numbers smaller than 18, not including 18, are part of my solution set. All right, let's scroll down here to the next page. Now, if at any point you want to pause this, okay, and then come back to it, all right, so that you can do these on your own, that's a great idea. Otherwise, I'm going to keep working through some of these, all right, and show you what the answers are there at the end, okay? So here we go. Minus 19, minus 19, Okay, so I end up with -8 is less than -1k. Okay, I'm gonna have to divide by -1. All right, divide by -1, that flips my symbol. So I end up with k is less than 8. Okay, now I don't like it written like that. I prefer it to be written in order left to right with the variable first. So if I do that, I gotta flip everything. So k is less than 8. Okay, now this one doesn't give me a number line to graph it on, but if I were going to graph it on a number line, right, which I should, I would put 8 in the middle. Okay, I would use an open circle and less than goes to the left. Okay, it doesn't have to really be any more detailed than that. All right, so the next one here, I'm going to do -15 first, -15 first. So I have 4.6f is greater than or equal to, and then I got 50.88 minus 15 ends up giving me 35.88. Okay, then I want to divide by 4.6, okay, from both sides. And it looks like I get f is greater than or equal to, okay, 7.8. Now, when you get a decimal point for a value and you have to graph that on a number line, that's okay, right? If I drew my number line here and I put 8 and I put 9, okay, and I put 6, or excuse me, 7, 7.8 is going to be close to 8, right? So I can just zoom in here and put a dot closer to the 8. All right, it's colored in because it's a closed set, the equal to sign's there, and I'm going to shade to the right because it's a greater than symbol. All right, if at any point you have to pause the video to copy, please do so. All right, next up here, I'm going to -14 because it's the opposite of plus. All right, so I have 3/2 x is less than or equal to -7. I'm going to divide both sides by 3/2. Okay, now some people get confused here because I have a -7, but I'm not dividing by the negative, okay? So my symbol actually stays the same here, all right? And whenever I do that, I'm going to get -14/3. Okay, now some of you might write that as -4 2/3. Some of you might write that as -4.6 repeating, okay? Regardless, I'm going to draw my number line, all right? It's between -4 and -5. Okay, but it's closer, certainly, to -5. Okay, and it's a closed circle. So I'm just estimating where that value is, or where that dot's at. And it goes left because it's less than. Okay. All right, next up here, I got a couple more. All right, so again, following my equation solving steps. All right, I'm going to add 19.8 to both sides because right now I see a minus 19.8. So I end up with 5D is less than whatever I get when I take 16.7 and I add 19.8 to it. I get 36.5. And then I'm going to divide by 5. All right, and when I do that, I end up getting 7.3. So D has to be less than 7.3. Again, on your number line, I'm just going to number this however I want. Let's say this is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If I'm plotting 7.3, first of all, it's going to be an open circle because it's a less than symbol with no equals. 7.3 is closer to 7 than it is to 8. And I'm going to shade to the left because it's less than. All right, so that's sort of your thought process as you graph that. All right, over here, similar idea. I'm going to start by subtracting 35 from both sides. Now, how do I know subtraction? Well, it's a positive 35. Okay, I don't want to look at that minus sign because that's the 9, not the 35. So I have -9x is less than or equal to whatever I get when I take 62 minus 35. Hopefully your calculator is giving you 27. All right, then I'm going to divide by -9. There's one of those special ones. If I'm dividing by a negative, I want to flip my symbol. So I end up getting x is greater than or equal to -3. All right, so I'm going to put -3 somewhere in the middle of my table, or my number line, excuse me. Number some other parts of it. Doesn't really matter to me how many you number. All right, what kind of circle am I going to use at -3? That's going to be a closed circle because it's a closed set with the equal to sign there. And it's a greater than, so I'm going to shade to the right for greater than or equal to negative 3. Again, you can pause this anytime and work on these problems on your own, and then just come back and check your answers. That's entirely up to you. All right, let's take a look at a couple of these word problems. What is the smallest value of x? That is not a solution. Not a solution. That's a key word there. Okay, we're going to have to solve first. All right, so let's first take a look here. If I add 26 to both sides, all right, I'm going to get 4x is less than 30. Okay, and then I'm going to divide by 4. Divide by 4. So I find out that x should be less than, and 30 over 4, you're going to get a decimal. It's a nice one, 7.5. Okay, what is the smallest value of x that is not a solution? Okay, so x is less than 7.5. Okay, so because it is there's no equal sign here, 7.5 is actually the answer. Okay, because it's not included. Okay, the first number it could be would be like 7.49 or 7.499 or whatever you want to say. Okay. Versage has $37.25 in his wallet. He would like to purchase a movie ticket, some candy. A ticket costs $7.25, and each box of candy is $3.75. It's expensive. He claims he can buy 5 boxes. Do you agree or disagree? All right, so let's write the inequality and solve it. Okay, so the $3.75 for each box of candy, so $3.75B, and then you add in the price of his ticket, which is $7.25. This has to be less than or equal to the amount of money in his wallet, $37.25. Okay, now he says he can buy 5. Okay, so what we want to do is plug 5 in for the B. Okay, so we're going to have $3.75. All right, and we're going to plug in 5 for B. And we're going to add $7.25 to it, and we're going to see if it's less than or equal to $37.25. Okay, this is calculator work here, so you can take that $3.75, all right, and you can multiply it by 5 in your calculator and add 7.5 to it, okay? Oh, excuse me, not 7.5, but 7.25, all right? So if I take $3.75 times 5, and then I add 7.25 to it, I should be getting 26. And is 26 less than or equal to 37.25? Sure is. Okay, so he would be correct. I agree. Okay. Next up, Mason's pet leopard gecko must be kept in a cage with a temperature of at least 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Using the inequality below, solve for C to determine the safe range of temperatures for his gecko in degrees Celsius. Okay, so it's basically just converting Fahrenheit to Celsius. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 32. Right, so I get 9/5. C is greater than or equal to 82 minus 32 is 50. Okay, and then we'll divide by 9/5. I could also multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, nothing wrong with that. And I find out that C ends up being, what is that? 50 divided by 9/5. 50 times 5/9. Ends up giving me 27. Greater than or equal to 27, all right, 0.7 repeating degrees Celsius. Okay, so he would want to keep that temperature above 27.7 degrees Celsius. All right, Glenn has $1,250 in his savings account. In order to avoid bank fees, Glenn must keep a minimum of $150 in his account. His cell phone costs him $35 a month. Using the inequality to determine how many months Glenn can pay for his cell phone before fees would be incurred. So let's see here. His $35 per month for his cell phone, so 35 times M, all right, plus the 150, okay, has to stay less than or equal to $1,250, right? Because that's all the money he has to spend. Okay, so if he solved this, minus 150 from both sides, because he can't go below that amount, he gets 35M is less than or equal to 1250 minus the 150 buffer he has to have is 1100. Okay, so that's how much money he has to actually pay his cell phone bill with. How many months can he do? So if we divide by 35, we find out that the M value has to be less than or equal to 31.4. Now, we can't have 4/10 of a month, okay? So in reality, we want to round this to the nearest whole number, and that's going to be 31. So he has up to 31 months, okay? So his months total has to be less or equal to 31 months. All right, so hopefully you're able to copy that down. You can obviously rewind as much as you need to get whatever you need from that. Please also work on the homework for this particular assignment.